Hey, and welcome back to the podcast. Chad Price is back. He was here previously at marketeroftheday.com/905. And Chad Price, if you don't know him, he's a seasoned entrepreneur with over a decade of experience in multiple industries. And his company is called Kettlebell Kings, which he started from scratch in 2012 and is still a $1 million Inc. 5000 international company. But Chad also owns many other companies. There's Life Grows Green, which promotes health and wellness. And his latest project is an amazing book that you want to check out called Preparing for Battle, which is his debut novel and covers a wide range of topics from developing a winning mindset, creating a solid business plan, building a strong team, and navigating the challenges of scaling a modern day business. So Chad Price from chadprice.com. Wonderful speaking with you again.
Thanks for having me back. It's awesome to kind of be making my rounds and having the opportunity to be back on the show. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, and I appreciate you too. And that's something to think about, right? That there's like how wide and how deep that you want to go. There's a need for like a healthy mix of both, right? You revisit your existing relationships, but also get outside your comfort zone and appear on other podcasts and other speaking gigs. And so since we last spoke, you came up with this amazing book and you have many things to talk about. So what's the latest news? What's the scoop?
Quite a bit, I obviously, I put out my first debut book, and that book is really designed to try to help an entrepreneur prepare his mindset for entrepreneurship, but really kind of tackling the hardships of entrepreneurship or the kind of the daily battle, if you will. So the title kind of says it in itself is you're trying to prepare yourself for more difficult tasks than you're used to, especially if you're coming from an employee type situation. And the book kind of starts off by telling my story. And the second part of the book goes into talking about kind of 10 basic building blocks of business and how I utilize some of these building blocks in Kettlebell Kings in that story. And then I finished the book with a workbook section that kind of help you map out your vision and in your particular idea, whatever that niche may be.
Wonderful. And, I've spoken with you and other people about this idea that there seems to be somewhat of an overlap of like the mental aspect of entrepreneurship and the athleticism, right? That if you're an athlete, if you're playing a sport, there's the team aspect and there's but most of all, like building the muscle and of not psyching yourself out. Because even just this morning, I was like sitting down doing computer stuff and I was thinking like, can I really sustain this? Like every day I'm juggling all these tasks. And you and I both know as entrepreneurs, well, yes, as long as you believe it's possible and as long as you don't fall into all these little kind of like employee mindset type excuses, like saying, I'm burned out or I'm tired. And it's like, no, you need to strengthen the muscle because the productivity and the person you are now is way stronger than 2 years ago. And in 2 years from now, you're going to be even stronger than you were today. So, I mean, tell me about what you think we need to know about as far as just preparing for battle and this kind of mental side of entrepreneurship.
Yeah, I think I think you hit the nail on the head when you kind of compare it to sports. And for me, having played sports in my entire life, it's really easy for me to kind of think about the days in which I've heard it in every different kind of way. I've heard a coach tell me not to be some derogatory word, you fill in the blank, with whatever words you need to be in terms of pushing through the hard times and being more tough than you think you can be. It's not until you get to the point in which you feel overwhelmed in which you really have a chance to grow. And I think when you become an entrepreneur, that is a day-to-day thing because you can do 1,000 things for your business every single day. So it's really a matter of trying to organize your ideas and your vision and turn those things into action items that can actually be achieved. And you'll always feel overwhelmed. I think, I used to argue and not even argue, but I used to tell my partners, it's a good thing that we have customers complaining. It's a good thing that we have more customers than we had last year, more complaints, more problems. That means that there's more things that are trying to flow through the system. And those are problems that as soon as we fix, more things can flow through the system and it'll never stop. So, every kind of aspect of your emotional and kind of mental well-being needs to be prepared for what entrepreneurship is, and it's gonna stress test you. And it's something that is supposed to be hard, and when you see it being hard, I think that's the opportunity to really dig in and grow.
I love it. Like the when it's hard, that's your opportunity to dig in and grow. You're saying that overwhelm is normal. That's what you should want. And just yeah, all these things that maybe are counterintuitive that it's so easy to make all these excuses, especially if you don't have the tools in place, like the a mentor or a coach, or even just like the constant kind of just getting yourself like tolerating your stress, I guess. And so since you've written this book, there's kind of this, I don't know if it's a secret among authors, but you kind of like realize things about yourself from you're a different person from when you started the book to where you end it, and it takes on a life of its own and it goes in places you never expected. And so did that happen with you too? Like in this book, did you kind of uncover something deep and dark and hidden within yourself?
I don't know about dark and hidden, but I would say I definitely discovered a lot because, I think I always wanted to write a book, and we grew Kettlebell King starting in 2012, and we started the 3-year acquisition at the beginning or the end of 2020. I mean, the beginning of 2022, let's say. So that was really a 10-year journey from starting something from scratch to it becoming, a global brand and actually being acquired. So that journey was, I think, a good time for me to look back and reflect on what that decade was like and try to put anything that I could to help someone else who was going through that or who was about to begin a journey like that. And that's kind of how the frame point in which I looked at preparing for battle is I'm really trying to envision myself 10 years ago and what can I do to make this journey a little smoother and more efficient than it was for me.
I love it. You're paying it forward. And I'm not really a big sports guy, but you hear about this in sports, right? There'll be like some legendary coach that started off, and then once they kind of aged out of their career, then they take all the things that they learned and they pay it forward. And that just seems like a really easy way to get out of writer's block of any kind, right? If you're trying to write a book or come up with podcast or YouTube content or blog posts, whatever, it's like if you sit down and say, let me list out 10 facts about building a business. Well, that's boring. But if you say, well, other like I struggled so much and there's so many things I wish I'd known, and then I put myself in the mindset of myself 10 years ago, and then those people kind of more or less exist, right? There are people who are in the exact position that you were 10 years ago. So when you tap into that mindset of the paying it forward and helping the person instead of reciting facts, then that can really kind of get the juices flowing and make the helpful advice and not just the filler words come out. And then so as far as you mentioned some things like there's like a 10-step process you have. And so I know we don't have time to like unpack every little step, but as far as just like the straightforwardness of it, right? It's easy for someone to say, well, I need to build a business, but there's all these things I could do, and I'm not even sure like what to do first and in what order and what the bottlenecks are. So as far as like the straightforward process, is there a way to easily explain like how someone can go from that idea and building it and getting acquired?
Yeah, I mean, I think it should be a journey, and I think that's kind of what I talk about in the book. Is everything I use my lessons and experiences from life to help me learn things. So, I talk about things from high school that I learned that helped me when I was, 25. It was things that were even younger than that when I was, a little kid growing up playing sports. I tell the story all the time of I played pretty much every sport growing up. So, I played tennis, baseball, basketball, track, soccer, every sport. And you can't be good at them all, but it was good for me to play the sports that I wasn't good in because I was able to learn how to use strategies that I wouldn't have used or my athletic gifts, let's say in tennis, didn't get me as far as they did in basketball or football. Those types of lessons give me perspective even now when I'm trying to achieve a task. I don't have to necessarily always be the expert. I need to be self-aware enough to know what needs to be done to achieve my goal. And so that's really what I talk about in the book. And I think that changes. So, I try to tell people like my social media strategy for making sales in 2012 when I started Kettlebell Kings is not going to be the same as your social media strategy in 2023. And there's not going to be really some book that was written, let's say a year ago, even that can tell you a strategy for social media that would be successful as efficient as it could be. So you kind of have to be in the game at all times. And I think that's really the point that I try to get across in the book is, jump into the game and start seeing yourself as a lifelong learner. You're working for a company now. Try to put yourself in the position of ownership at that company. Take responsibility for things that you don't have to take responsibility for because you want to grow as a person and as a potential leader in the future. And once you see you can handle that stuff, it's very much easier to take that first step to start your business. When you know you can run the entire operation that you're currently working at, you have no, you have no real fear of starting your own business. It's just a matter of getting the resources in place. But when you don't have the resources and you don't have the experience and knowledge, then I don't know if you really should start your own business in that way. That is kind of a risk. And I think that's where I try to look at kind of preparing for battle is every single person is going to have a different regiment to get themselves to a point in which they can take that leap and starting their own company. And I think that's the biggest point.
Wonderful. And this analogy you're mentioning here of being in the game, I love that. And it sparks so many things in my brain because there's that kind of that stereotype of like the armchair quarterback, right? Some guys sitting in his easy chair with a soda or something and watching the football game and saying, "Oh, I would have done this way better and that way better." It's like it's easy for you to say you would have because you're just watching the output versus getting in the game and actually taking some action and making some progress. And we all know that once we're in something, it's way harder than just looking at it from the outside. And so you're saying that in whatever your dream is, don't just think about it, do it. And especially if you're in a situation where you're like an employee in some similar business, then go above and beyond and don't just stick to your role, but see if there are other responsibilities and other things you can do and learn about the ins and outs of that business because it'll pay off in the future. And that's even kind of a lesson I'm getting from speaking with you here is that there's so many little things that in the moment when you're 10 years old or 12 years old and you're playing tennis or you're playing baseball or something, and it's just one little just mental trick or one little kind of lesson, and then it pays off like decades later and you don't even realize it. And so if we pay attention, nothing is a waste, especially the mistakes, which again, at the time, we think is just like this thing that's beating us down, but it's something that can really help us out in the future. And so I'm kind of looking at the table of contents in your book here, and you talk about things like building a team and creating this roadmap you mentioned and having a clear vision. So out of all these chapters, is there one that like is your favorite or one that stands out to you?
I think I don't know if it's a particular chapter, but I think the idea of self-awareness probably stands out to me the most. And that's just because that's what I noticed people fail with. One of the fortunate things I was able to do is being kind of in charge of all kind of B2B operations in Kettlebell Kings. And so I got to talk to tons and tons of small business owners. I even did a project once in which I literally talked to, I think it was 60 plus small business owners just to see if we could be of help, if from a financial standpoint, like if if they wanted to make a sale, but also just from a business owner to business owner standpoint. And going through those types of conversations, and I've started executive coaching and things like that now, as I kind of develop my career. But going through those conversations helped me really understand that a lot of people are just so overwhelmed that they don't really self-reflect that often. They don't have a mentor that can give them a point of view that they trust and respect that's maybe objective and outside of themselves. And it's hard to see everything about yourself when you're in the fight every day in, day out. And I encourage people to try to do that before you get in the fight. So try to take that self-evaluation before you can start fighting, measure yourself, try to find ways in which you can pressure test yourself so what's going to happen when you panic, what's going to happen when, the bills can't get paid. You kind of have at least some support system that you've established around yourself to help you through the hard times because you're heading for hard times. That's what entrepreneurship is. It's not, glitz and glory every single day. This is going to be a battle before you have the reward. And if it wasn't, it wouldn't be worth it in the first place. So sports has taught me that. And, I know that the season is going to get more difficult. Playoffs are going to be harder games. Like I get that kind of that concept and idea. And I think a lot of people, if you don't have a sports or athletic background, or even just some type of competitive background, especially in today's age with millennials and kind of participation trophy atmosphere that we live in, you kind of get overwhelmed just with the harsh reality of entrepreneurship or capitalism or business in general.
So you're saying that it is hard, it's supposed to be hard, it's going to get even harder, and there is some kind of an emergency coming, and you probably don't even know when it will be or how huge it will be or what it will be. And so that seems to be where the preparing of the preparing for battle title comes in, that we need to just have that support system in place, maybe even ahead of time, and then know what is coming. And even when that battle does come, it's not the end of the world, right? It's like you play a sport. If you know, if you lose a game, there'll be other games. But then it's important to have these tools in place so that way you don't quit forever, right? Because you could be an athlete and you could be playing a sport and you could have such a bad game that just crushes your spirits. You never pick up the football, never pick up the baseball ever again. And that's a real shame. And so if you're in business, you want to continue on and learn and grow and be strengthened by these failures. And so you're saying have your self-awareness in place and have these tools and journal and have a coach and talk with your team and communicate and all these things, because the battle is coming. The big surprise is on its way somewhere in the future. But embrace it, enjoy it, use it as an opportunity to move on to bigger and better things. And I think that it's a very inspiring message that you have here, Chad. And I want to make sure that we fit in, like, is there anything that you wish that I'd asked you, or is there anything that's just like really powerful that you think our audience can really benefit from today?
I wouldn't say anything necessarily, I wish you asked. One of the things that I didn't really mention, I talked about it briefly, kind of my executive coaching that I'm doing now. That's one of kind of a big thing that I'm doing. I'm doing it for universities and student athletes as well. So I've started doing like workshops, and, I have a workshop, for example, where, uh, how to apply sports concepts on the business playing field. So really trying to think about what lessons can be learned and applied, and some lessons can't be applied necessarily from the sports playing field to business. But anyone that's kind of interested in that journey of transitioning your life experiences into kind of being that leader you envision yourself to be, those are kind of the people that I'm looking to work with, especially from an executive coaching standpoint. And then I also, obviously, I talked about starting my podcast, so I'll be dropping a lot more information about the name and where you can find that podcast here shortly. But you can find all that information on chadprice.com and my socials.
Wonderful. So chadprice.com is the place to go. And I assume the book is also linked there, correct?
Yes, the book is linked there as well. You can also find it on Amazon. It's available for ebook and hard copy paperback. Ebook, I think it's only like $2.99 right now, so a real cheap pickup for you if you're looking just to consume some information to get your mindset into kind of the correct place for starting your own business.
And that is the day and age that we live in, right? Where you can just go and get a $2.99 Kindle or a YouTube or a podcast, and it's all free. And there's more information than ever before. But the key is in applying it. And you can learn all the books on football and soccer and tennis, etc. But if you don't actually practice and know how that fits with your own strengths and weaknesses and put in the repetitions and all those things, then it's just words on a page. And the same is true for you in your business, where if you just kind of try to go it alone or go with it without a plan or give up too easily, those are all the traps that you might fall into. And instead, the way forward is to do some of these things that Chad is explaining to us, and most importantly, pick up Chad Price's book, Preparing for Battle. It's on Amazon. It's linked from chadprice.com, and you can find out all about everything else Chad has going on with Kettlebell Kings. And, I love what you have going on here, Chad, because you accomplish these things with your company, and then you're applying this whole thing called leadership, where you're saying, well, I've done these things, now let me pass it along and explain to others what I've done and help others out. So that way it's not just about me being selfish, but also giving back. So I love what you have going on. So Chad Price from chadprice.com and the book Preparing for Battle. And as we wrap up our conversation here, Chad, it's always fun to ask about a favorite quote or lesson that has really like helped my guests and can help others, since we're all about that today and paying it forward. So what comes to mind for you when I ask about a quote or lesson that you just think is worthy of mentioning right now?
Um, Probably gratitude. I think, well, that's one of the things you don't see a lot of, especially in today's world, is, I think we live in a time of turmoil, and the people around us, the customers we have, the people that support our ideas, I think we can show them a lot more gratitude than what we currently do. As a leader and as kind of an owner of a company, I think that goes a long way inside your company and the morale of your employees and the morale and brand kind of culture you want to build. So my advice would be, more gratitude to go around.
I love it. It's a wonderful message. It costs nothing and it's inspiring. And I'm grateful for you here being here yourself, Mr. Chad Price, for you're kind of inspiring me. And I have all these ideas in the back of my head, like, oh, I need to go and like record like a quick video for this person and thank them for that. And so it's catching on like wildfire. So I appreciate you, Chad Price from chadprice.com, and the book Preparing for Battle: How to Overcome Life's Challenges, Unlock Your Full Potential, and Build a Successful Business. Chad, I really appreciate you and thank you for stopping by.
Thanks for having me on again. Nice to be back.